Hello and welcome to Broken Entertainment and today's Sunday writing video that is actually posted more or less on a Sunday. So today we're going to cover another character from my current fantasy project, Shadow Empire, and we're going to cover a little bit of where I am on my writing right now. So as far as writing goes, I still haven't been able to get it back to Shadow Empire because I'm trying to finish the editing on Invasion. That editing is going very, very well. I'm very, very close to finishing to send it to beta readers. I don't really have a percentage on that. It's 97, 98% done. I have to finish the last big fight scene, and then I've got some wrap-up stuff to go through and edit, but that's about where I am on that. Very happy with my progress on it of late. Shadow Empire remains at about 20% of draft 0, so that's got a ways to go yet. But I'm going to focus most of these videos on talking about Shadow Empire over Invasion because of where Invasion is in the process. Now, I will probably discuss its sequel characters to some extent and its universe to some extent later on, but I'm not sure about that yet. I may just leave it to this fantasy one. So, today's character is Asiri. She is 16 cycles old when the story begins, and she is Hydroxy, not human. I do have other male characters coming, I promise. But this happens to be one that I'm pretty excited about and I want to get into, so I just decided to go ahead with her. So Asiri is a major character, and I can't really tell you her relation to the other characters right now without spoiling anything, but you might be able to infer some of that from the description I gave of the story in the previous video. Now, we have two images here. I don't like the way, and maybe somebody who knows better can tell me a way to make the image on the left in Campfire Blaze bigger. But so far I haven't figured out how to do that. So none of the pictures I'm using here are exactly what the character is like or exactly what their weaponry is like. And that is because I am not an artist. And and when I say I'm not an artist, I mean like, if you want me to draw a stick, I can probably get you close enough that if you look at it, you might be able to realize it's a stick. Okay, so I am using images that are similar because they give me inspiration. They allow me to look at it and figure out, okay, while I'm describing this, how do I want to go about this? Stuff like that. Now, the one on the left, right here where my cursor is, this is not what she looks like, but this is her skin tone. Hydroxy have very, very dark black skin. And they range in tone, of course, like any other sentient species does. But, for example, Chrysaya, who is one of their major leaders, has darker skin than this. Hydroxy are tribal. But before anybody tries to get on any kind of silly tangents, they're not tribal because of their skin tone, okay? They're tribal for different reasons entirely. Their skin tone is actually related to their deity. They don't actually worship one, they're atheistic, but they have a connection to a god that they're not aware of, and that influences certain aspects of their species. So this is that image, but much closer up, so you get a better idea. Because that little image just doesn't work for me. But there it is. This picture over here, this is what their armor looks like. It's not identical. There's some differences, but it's very, very close to what their armor looks like. They wear leather, and a lot of medieval historian types are going to say leather armor didn't exist and it doesn't work. Yes, that's true. Leather armor, in the sense of fantasy, does not really exist, never really did. This is different because of the material it's made out of. It's made from the hide of a creature that is more or less impenetrable. It's one of the many creatures of the planet that have been corrupted and influenced by the arcanicalism. And one of the results of that is its skin is virtually impenetrable. They do wear padding below that to protect against, kinetic physical impacts. It's not as thick by any stretch as, say, Gambeson is, but it does affect the impact to some degree. It's certainly better than being hit directly. And their body can absorb a little bit more damage than humans can in that regard as well. But their armor is primarily designed to protect against slashing and stabbing attacks. So, in that sense, you would want to attack them with the same kind of weapons you would attack somebody in full plate. You want to use maces, you want to use bludgeons, that kind of thing. They will occasionally, and especially as war picks up with them and the Sirule Commonwealth, they will take spoils of war in the form of armor plating, and they'll strap that onto different parts of their armor if they think that area needs more protection, or they just think it looks neat there. So seeing some Hydroxy warrior with plate on their shoulder would not be unheard of whatsoever. The breastplate could happen as well. The difference here primarily is that the medal is an add-on. It's a war trophy. It's not the primary source of the actual armor protection. And in fact, the metal that they're strapping on is less protective than the leather that it's going over the top of. The coloration is white. Very, very white, actually. It is basically as white as driven snow, as the phrase goes. And that's because the beast that this hide comes from often conceals itself in very large amounts of snow, because it's a very, very big creature. And as it gets older, it ceases to conceal itself. Its skin ages and becomes less white, but initially it's very white. That's where they get that. This leather is also multi-layered, so they'll have different types of leather on that as well. The second layer is primarily that impenetrable leather I was talking about. The outer layer is from a different creature. It's also large, but it is more chameleonic than the creature with the impenetrable skin. And the reason they do that is because they live in the Apocalypse Spires. The Apocalypse Spires have a lot of two things: mountains and snow. So if you're a humanoid race living in the Apocalypse Spires and every animal that you might hunt for food is just as likely to hunt you for food, you want to be able to conceal yourself. So you get this really durable leather, and then on top of that, you put this white leather that blends in well with the snow, and you can kind of cover yourself in snow because they don't care about cold. They're totally immune to cold. They can cover themselves in snow completely, hide in snow mounds, that kind of thing, wait for prey to come by and ambush it. It's one of the tactics they use, not the only one. They also choose white because white shows blood very, very well. And they like to use that as an intimidation tactic in battle. If you see your enemy covered in your blood, that tends to make you hesitate a little bit. Now, the other difference is, yes, they would have a sword. It would not be out this far. It would be strapped closer to the hip. They would also have a bow, and they would have what is called, in their story, in this story here, it is a spear club. In reality, this is a Finnish weapon with a name that translates to good day, and I'm not very good at pronouncing it, so I'm going to let it go. This is essentially a short spear with a really nasty club bit on the end with a big pointy spike. These are weapons they all have. This is their primary battle weapon. They all have swords as well, And the swords they forge when they become warriors. When they pass the trials, they take the bones of the creature they hunted, and they use that to form their sword. That's a thing we'll get into later, because normally bone swords don't work all that well. This, again, different story. The halves of these can be anything from wood to bone. It kind of depends on the person crafting it and the importance they put on this particular weapon. In Asiri's case, it's bone, because for Asiri, this is the main weapon. This is the weapon she uses over anything else. She has a bow because you just occasionally might need to be ranged, and she carries a sword because that is the identifier of her being an adult. But this is the weapon that she likes to use the most. This is the weapon she's the best with. So, we'll get into her a little bit. Like I said, she's 16 cycles old. She is from the Apocalypse Spires. Now, her given name is Asir. Once a Hydroxy woman passes their trials and becomes an adult, they take their second vowel and they reproduce it at the end of their word, or at the end of their name. So Asir becomes Asiri. She's female. She is actually bisexual, not heterosexual, in part because of cultural reasons. But she doesn't really have time for that aspect, because she's out to prove herself as an amazing warrior and gain the attention of Crasaya so that she can be elevated and become this awesome warrior that she envisions herself as being. So she doesn't really have time for any of that right now. She will have to form a harem at some point of men so that she can have an heir, but as far as she's concerned, that's a later date. That's later down the road. She's atheistic like most of her race, or species, whichever word you prefer. She has amber eyes, very dark black skin. Her hair is in very, very short braids, and that is taken directly from what a lot of female MMA fighters do. They braid their hair in what is sometimes cornrows, sometimes it's just very short braids, and that's so people can't use their hair in combat by pulling on it and so on. She does the same thing because she's from a warrior culture. So it makes a lot of sense. You don't have a lot of long-haired women. Now, men, Hydroxy men, are more likely to have long hair. She's 5'3", 125 pounds. She's built. Okay? She's not a bodybuilder type. She's athletic, but she's strong, like most Hydroxy. And in that regard, she weighs a little bit more than a 5'3" human woman from, say, Sirule might. So she enjoys rock climbing a lot. She's actually very good at it and uses that to her advantage during her trials in the book. She also enjoys practicing mixed martial arts. This is a competition they get in as a way of burning off stress and just as a hobby. It's a sport not unlike MMA with a lot fewer rules. She's open, extroverted person. She's very outgoing, but she's also brash. She is not terribly eager to please unless it's Crasaya. Everybody else to her is just in her way to that path. She is a little bit of a reformer, and that's something that's going to come out later on in the story. She doesn't start out that way. Definitely an achiever, an individualist, a challenger. She wants to be at the top of society. And that means everybody between her and the top of society is competition. Very proactive, very passionate, very driven, very brave, very enthusiastic. She's got a lot of integrity. She's persistent. She's cooperative when it helps her. Or when they're on, a hunt or in combat, that kind of thing, where not being cooperative is massively detrimental. She's impatient. She's very, very, quarrelsome's kind of an odd term. She's very aggressive, and that can lead her into, non-blood fights with other women from time to time, and is not forgiving in the slightest. At least not with Hydroxy. If you're not potential competition, she treats you a little bit differently than if you're competition. Put it that way. Her fighting style, like the fighting style of most Hydroxy, she's very aggressive, very brutal, absolutely merciless. They do not play around in combat, and they are twice as strong and twice as fast as humans, not in terms of running speed, but in terms of quickness, their ability to react to situations and to stimuli. They're just, it may not sound like a lot, but if you really think about it, if you're fighting somebody that can respond to what you're doing twice as fast as you can respond to them, you're basically screwed. Okay? And then that combined with the strength, there's a reason that they tend to cleave through human armies. Their problems fighting human armies, though, are the human armies are far more organized, and human armies tend to be a lot bigger. Hydroxy don't have massive populations they can just throw at people. I've already covered they're immune to cold, strong, quick. They have an anti-magic presence as a species. Magic does not work on them. And not only that, if you cast in their vicinity, and by vicinity I mean roughly 15 feet away from one, the spell will fail completely. And that doesn't just mean you're standing next to one. If you cast a fireball too close to a Hydroxy, it'll just stop and not work. So, you could be, not that you can be 3 miles away casting a fireball, right? But you can cast a fireball from really far away. If that comes within 15 feet of a Hydroxy, spell fails. And this also works on stored magic. It will break apart stored magic. It's very nasty. And there's reasons for that, all of which will be covered in the books. So I will not be telling you those. I covered her personality a little bit already, so. But yeah, this is Asiri. This is the first Hydroxy character I will be talking about. The next character I'll bring up will probably be one of the male supporting characters, and then we'll go from there and just kind of see. So, let me know what you think in the comments. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing. Hit the bell for notifications, and I will see you next time.